You could get rid of all police shootings of civilians tomorrow, and it would have virtually no effect on the Black death by homicide rate. Blacks between the ages of 10 and 25 die of gun homicide at 25 times the rate of whites in that age category. And they're not being killed by the cops. They're being killed by other blacks. And nobody wants to talk about it. We're supposed to believe that we're all racist. It's the media that's racist. They don't give a damn about black lives. They don't give a damn about the dozens of blacks who are killed by homicide every single day. That's more than all white and Hispanic homicide victims combined, even though, as we said, blacks are 13% of the population. Virtually none of those black homicide victims gets covered. We are not saying their names because they're killed by other blacks, and we don't want to talk about that. So the Ferguson effect says when you demonize the cops back off. And guess what happens? When the cops stop making stops, when they stop looking at hot spots where shootings have happened, and they back off, criminals get emboldened and more black lives are taken. That's what happened after the Ferguson riots, after the George Floyd race riots in 2020. We had an even greater meltdown. We had every single American elite institution declaring it was racist to the core. And the cops were, of course, as usual, one of the main targets of this. 2020 saw the largest one-year increase in homicide in this nation's history, 29%, and thousands more black lives were taken. That's what happens when you demonize the cops. The courts and activists came up with a new definition of what would be illegal discrimination. And it gets rid of the idea of intention and intentional discrimination completely. Disparate impact is the conceit that if there's a standard that blacks do more poorly at, it's discriminatory. So if you have a certain expectation of reading level or math skills to qualify to be a teacher, to be a firefighter, to be a police officer, and a employer administers a test and blacks do more poorly on that, that's a racist test. Instead of meeting the standard, our response is to throw out the standard. And the employer is not racist. You don't have to show that the employer wants to discriminate against blacks. The employer just wants a qualified workforce. But if he has used some kind of standard that means that there are less blacks qualifying, that then becomes something that violates civil rights. I'll give you an example right out of the Biden administration.
Maryland State Police hoping to settle a U.S. Justice Department investigation into its alleged racial discrimination by paying almost $3 million.
The Maryland State Police wanted to make sure that the state troopers could read at a very basic level, because as a police officer, you're going to need to write police reports, you're going to need to understand the patrol guide, you're going to need some level of dealing with written language and being able to read and write. Very minimal level. So the Maryland State Police had a written exam. And this is the type of question, 4 very simple paragraphs written at like maybe a 3rd grade level that discussed theft from libraries in the United States. And then followed up a true or false question. Is theft a problem in U.S. libraries? Just reading comprehension. Have you been able to understand this 4-paragraph passage? Well, this test, and the questions were all at that level of simplicity, had what's known as a disparate impact on black applicants to be Maryland State Troopers. Black applicants failed the test at higher rates than whites. The Maryland State Troopers didn't intend to exclude black state troopers. Racism had nothing to do with it. It was a colorblind, neutral test of skills. But because it had a disparate impact on black applicants and disqualified more black applicants, the Biden Justice Department brought a suit against the Maryland State Police for having a discriminatory test.
Hiring tests that unfairly and unlawfully excluded them from employment.
This this is ridiculous. Taxpayers should not be on the hook for this. It was not a racist department. Disparate impact means that an institution can be completely colorblind. It can want to have as many different races as possible. But if it has a standard that it's colorblind, meritocratic, but that blacks do poorly on, you got to throw out the standard. And it's not just sort of public service jobs like policing. Our taxpayers in New York recently paid out $2 billion in damages because the exam for licensing teachers in New York State, which I can tell you went through decades of being dumbed down to proleptically avoid disparate impact. Blacks still didn't do as well on it. And so a court decided, even though you've spent decades throwing out every question on this exam that has too wide a racial divergence, you still didn't have the same proportion of black applicants passing as white applicants. We're going to throw out the exam, and you, New York taxpayers, are liable for $2 billion. Disparate impact is our greatest weapon against merit. It is the greatest weapon against excellence, and it is an abuse of the spirit of our civil rights laws, which was to say we're going to allow everybody to reach their highest potential. We ban discrimination, but we do not ban excellence. We do not ban high expectations. We want all people to reach the same level of competence. We're not going to have two standards of achievement, one for a particular race, another for another race, one for a particular sex, another for a different sex. We are going to have a single level of excellence in this society, and that is how we're going to move forward. It's really a cruel thing for anybody to be catapulted into an environment for which he's not competitively qualified. They don't do well. And this is the same thing if for gender preferences. If MIT admitted me with math SATs of 650 on an 800-point scale because they felt they needed more gender diversity in their engineering class because there weren't enough females there, as if I care about the sex of somebody that is building a bridge that I want to get across safely. All I care is that the best possible engineer for that job. But MIT has different ideas and thinks the gonads of engineers matter to their competence. So it admits me with 650 on an 800-point scale on math, and my peers who've been admitted based on merit, not gonads, all have 800s. I am going to struggle in my math classes in freshman year because I've been admitted to a peer group that is more academically qualified than I am. Now, I can still go to engineering school. I should go with students that also average 650, and my freshman calculus class and my freshman engineering and chemistry class will be pitched to my level of academic preparedness. But if I'm sent into MIT, it's frankly going to be hell on earth because I'm going to be behind, and lo and behold, what happens? The diversity bureaucrats show up and tell me, if you're feeling out of place, if you're struggling, if you're not doing as well as your peers, it's because you're in a rape culture. It's because you're in a patriarchy. It's because you are surrounded by a female hostile environment. They're not going to be honest and say, no, it's because you've been catapulted into an academic environment for which you are not competitively qualified. Now, the argument is always, but they'll do better. They'll catch up. They don't. It would be nice if they did, but they don't catch up. They struggle. It is cruel. It is an act of narcissism and ego on the part of these college administrators who only care about the photos that show up on their college website and making sure that they're suitably diverse, and do not care about the fate of Black students who have been admitted